All right, guys, welcome back to Week 5 game predictions. We are through 4 weeks right now in the NFL season. We've had some disappointing teams and some surprising teams, but let's get right into it. So, a little recap from Week 4. I was 11 4 and 1, and my lock of the week was the Packers to beat the Cowboys, and they tied. So, the only thing I can think of that would be fair is I'm going to another $10 to the big giveaway pot at the end of the year. I would feel bad if I count that as a win, so I'm going to add $10 instead of 25. And now my yearly record is sitting at 42 wins, 21 losses, and 1 tie. And then another thing about the giveaway, I want to make it clear how I'm going to be picking the winner. So for the big giveaway at the end of the year, the way you enter is you must be a subscriber, you must like at least one of the videos, and you must comment on at least one of the videos. If you comment on each video, you're going to have a better chance. At the end of the year, I'm going to pick a random video. I'm going to pick a comment and see if they like the video and are a subscriber. So with that being said, if you want a better chance to win the big giveaway at the end of the year, just make sure you comment on every video going forward and even some of the past videos, just telling what you agree and disagree on. And like I said, the more comments you have, the better chances you have. All right, let's get right into it though. So my week 4 player of the week is Puka. He finished the week 4 against Indianapolis with 13 receptions for 170 yards and a touchdown and a win, which is the cherry on top for the Rams. I think Puka has been playing so well. He's been playing himself into the best receiver in the league conversations. He's on historic pace, like I said. So let me know in the comments who you guys think the top 3 receivers are in the league. And let me know if you think that Puka's in the top 3. It'll be interesting to see. All right. My start of the week for fantasy is going to be Garrett Wilson against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm just going to keep taking receivers that are going against Dallas' secondary until Dallas' secondary shows me otherwise that they can defend. Dallas has given up multiple 30-plus point weeks, and I just think their secondary is the weak link on that team. So I think if you have a receiver that's going against Dallas, you should usually start them, and that's why my start of the week this week is in Garrett Wilson. In the first matchup, we have Thursday Night Football tomorrow. We have the Niners versus the Rams, and the Niners couldn't get any pressure last week without Nick Bosa. He tore his ACL a couple weeks ago, and it really showed. He was the leader of that defense, and they couldn't get any pressure against the Jags. And Matt Stafford gets a ball on average in 2.55 seconds, so I don't think pressure is going to be a problem for the Rams. I think, Matt Stafford with no pressure is a deadly quarterback who can pick apart defenses. He's currently second in passing yards and third in passing touchdowns, so he's been fantastic this year. And the Niners just have too many injuries this week. They just ruled out Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Brock Purdy's playing as well. So they just have too many injuries, and it's a short week for them. Same for the Rams, but with all the injuries they have, it's just grueling for them. And I'm just going to be taking the team with more momentum and the healthier team, and I'm taking the Rams to win in the first matchup. In the next matchup, we have the Raiders versus the Colts, the first 1 o'clock game. And even though the Colts lost last week, I thought they looked pretty good. I think Daniel Jones, although his stats didn't show that he played a good game, I think he had unfortunate situations with Adonai Mitchell costing the team that week with the touchdown that he should have had, and he dropped it right before he got in the end zone. And like I said, I thought they looked pretty solid against a good Rams team, and they should have won the game. The Raiders haven't looked good at all, and that starts with Geno Smith, who has had 7 interceptions through 4 games and 8 turnover-worthy plays through 4 games. The Raiders' offense has to clean it up before they can start getting wins. And even though Daniel Jones had multiple turnovers last week, I just think that was his worst game of his season, and I don't think he's going to be doing that much anymore. And, I'm going to be picking the Colts this matchup until the Raiders can show me that they can be a competent team on offense with all the stuff they invested in with Ashton Genty, getting Geno Smith in the offseason, Brock Bowers in 2024. I think that the offense should be way better than how it is, and I think it starts with Geno Smith, which says right here. He has more interceptions and touchdowns. He's turning over the ball way more than he needs to, and they need to clean up the offense for them to start winning. All right, next game up, we have the Giants versus the Saints. The Saints hung in the game against the Bills last week until the fourth quarter, where Josh Allen took over. And I think the Saints' defense is not as bad as we think. I think the offense has shown their flashes, although the Giants put off a big upset last week against the Chargers in Jackson Dart's first start. He didn't pass the ball well, but he showed his playmaking ability, and I think going forward, he could be a good quarterback in the league. Dart barely threw for over 100 yards. I think that you can credit that to having his receiver 1 out in his first career start. So I think over time, Brian Daboll is going to adjust the offense and play to Jackson Dart's strengths. I think the Saints secondary isn't the best, so I think that he should be able to pass the ball better this week too. But I think the Saints are going to be able to contain his rushing ability to a certain extent. and I don't think he's going to be able to run the ball like he did last week against the Chargers. I think the Giants are going to be able to minimize the Saints rushing attack as well. I'm going to take the Giants in this one because I just trust their defensive line. I think they're the better defense. I think they're going to be able to create pressure against New Orleans. Although Spencer Rattler doesn't have that many turnovers, he's only thrown one interception, but he's had 9 turnover-worthy plays. And I think eventually it's going to fall the other way. And although he's been playing solid this year, I think that the Giants' D-line's going to cause some pressure. And I think he's finally going to make some more mistakes. And that's why I'm picking the Giants in this matchup. All right, and next up we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Jets. I think their run defense was solid against the Packers last week. They didn't allow Josh Jacobs to have too big of a game and take over. But man, that Dallas secondary, like I said earlier, is prone to giving up big plays. I think Garrett Wilson, like I said earlier, is in line to have another good game against Dallas. Going over to the Jets, I think the Jets offense was horrendous last week against Miami's defense is looked at as one of the worst in the league. I think we can expect Dallas' defense to give Fields some trouble. Justin Fields couldn't pass the ball that well at all. And although the Dolphins' defense is pretty bad, I think the Cowboys are a little bit better. It's going to be interesting to see how the Jets' offense adjusts for the Dallas defense. I think Dallas objectively is a little bit of a better defense than Miami. And the Jets are already 0-4, 0-5, and that's pretty much the season's already over there. And I'm interested to see how their defense adjusts. This game's tricky for me. I don't know if I should pick Dallas, and I think that Sauce Gardner can minimize Pickens to a certain extent. Tolbert and Kevontae Turpin are going to need to step up. But I think the Jets can slowly start to pick apart Dallas' secondary, even though Justin Fields isn't one of the better passing quarterbacks. But regardless, I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys. I think they have more talent on their team, and I think they're going to be able to adjust better. And I just can't trust the Jets' offense to move the ball if they can't do it against the Dolphins' defense. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Quite frankly, Philadelphia's passing attack is non-existent. I don't know if that's due to the new Eagles offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo, or Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has shown that he can throw the ball multiple times in big games. But it's scary because Philly's rushing attack hasn't been the same they were last year, and their offense has been struggling. But although they're 4-0, I think we can objectively say that their offense has looked way worse than it has last year. And Denver only allows 99.3 rushing yards per game, which is just outside the top 10. And if Pastertan is able to lock up A.J. Brown and they can't get the passing game going, the Broncos D-line will be able to minimize Barkley like other teams were able to earlier. How can I expect the Eagles to win the game other than their defense making plays? I can, however, see that the Phillies defense can make plays because Bo Nix hasn't looked the best in year 2. He has 3 interceptions through 4 games. But give me Denver because I think Philly's offense is going to struggle too much. And I like Sean Payton as a coach. And I think they're going to be able to scheme up a good game. I think after this game, it's going to show how big of an issue Philly's offense is and how they're going to have to adjust it completely and change it up completely if they want to run it back and win the Super Bowl back-to-back. But give me the Broncos in this matchup. All right, and next up we have the Miami Dolphins versus the Carolina Panthers. I think this one's going to be a tough game to predict because I think both defenses aren't good. Unfortunately, Tyreek Hill is going to be out for the rest of the season and might not even be back for next season with that gruesome injury that happened on Monday Night Football. But I think I'm going to be picking Miami in this matchup. That Carolina's defense has been otherworldly bad. Like 42 points last week against the Patriots. And even though New England's offense has improved, I don't think they're one of the best offenses in the league. Giving up 42 points just shows me that they just don't have the talent. I can very well easily see the Dolphins getting it going. And I think that Devon Achane's going to be able to run the ball all over Carolina's defense. They allow 129 rushing per game. So I can expect to see a big Devon Achane game. Give me the Dolphins in this matchup. All right, next up we have the Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore was killed last week with all their injuries. Roquan Smith is going to be out for a couple weeks now. Nnamdi Madubuike is officially out for the year. Nate Wiggins and Lamar Jackson got injured. So it's going to be interesting to see how the new look Ravens are going to look with all these injuries they're going to have to deal with. But I just think they're too talented of a team to be 1-3. And Baltimore's defense hasn't looked that good at all. And Houston got their first win last week finally against the Titans. They shut them out. But I just think if we're going talent for talent, Baltimore blows out a lot of teams, and especially the Texans. And I think Baltimore's defense can have a bounce back week with the Texans' shaky O-line play. So regardless of all the injuries, give me the Baltimore Ravens. If the Ravens go 1-4, my panic meter shoots through the roof, and they're at a big risk of missing the playoffs this year. So they really got to get it going this week. But give me the Ravens in this matchup. All right, next up we have the Tennessee Titans versus the Arizona Cardinals. And I'm going to say it in a little bit of a nicer way than what Cam Ward said it, but the Titans are really bad. Cam Ward obviously wasn't very happy with the performance. Arizona, however, is coming off a close loss against the Seattle Seahawks where they couldn't really sustain drives. And Kyler Murray didn't look his best. He threw 2 interceptions. But going back to the Titans, I think that Brian Callahan is going to be on a short leash. They've tried everything. They changed offensive play callers last week, and obviously you could tell it didn't work out in week 4 as they got shut out, like I said earlier, against the Texans. However, going back to Arizona, I'm intrigued to see how their offense performs without Trey Benson, who was just put on the IR earlier today. But I don't think Tennessee's defense is a tough one. They allow 30 points per game and just under 370 yards per game. So I think Arizona is going to have a big bounce back week, a good offensive performance, and give me Arizona to win this matchup in week 5. All right, next up we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's going to be a safe bet to say that Bucky Irving probably isn't going to be playing this week. He was spotted in crutches and in a walking boot during Wednesday's practice, and if he's out, that's a big hit. However, Tampa obviously has a solid backup in Rashad White, so I think the run game can still be consistent, but going over to Seattle, I was low on Seattle before the season started, and I'm looking like I'm wrong. They're a very well-balanced team, and they're sitting at 3-1. They score the 6th most points on offense and allow the 2nd least on defense. So I think they're a very balanced team that can win with their offense or defense. And I think this matchup, especially for Seattle's offense, I don't see anyone in the Bucs secondary that's going to be able to guard Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's been having a great season, 26 receptions, 402 yards, and has looked amazing, like a top 5 receiver so far this season. But without Bucky Irving, I think Seattle's defense is going to be able to have an easier task at hand. So with that, I'm going to be taking the Seattle Seahawks to win the Week 5 matchup. All right, next up we have the Detroit Lions versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And it sucks because Cincinnati had some potential this year, but with Joe Burrow being out for the most of the season with his injury, the offense obviously can't move the ball. They can't sustain drives, and the defense is constantly on the field. If we're being honest, with their defense is already not that good, it's just not a good match for their defense to not be good and constantly on the field. They're just prone to give up big plays. Detroit has all the momentum going for them, winning 3 in a row, and their offense and defense are getting better each week. So with that being said, give me the Lions to win pretty convincingly in this Week 5 matchup. All right, next up we have the Washington Commanders versus the LA Chargers. And I think finally Jaden Daniels is expected to be back this week after missing the last 2 weeks with Marcus Mariota stepping in. But I don't think Terry McLaurin is trending in the right direction towards playing. He didn't practice today. Same with Deebo Samuel. So Jaden Daniels in his first game back can very well be without his 2 top pass catchers in Deebo and Terry McLaurin. However, I think the Chargers are coming off a big disappointing loss, like I said earlier in the episode, that they lost the Giants in Jackson Dart's first start, and they also lost star tackle Joe Alt in that game, and he's going to be out for a couple weeks with an ankle sprain. So both teams are going to be playing without some key players, but I think that Justin Herbert has been playing at an MVP level so far, and the Commanders give up the 3rd most yards per pass, and they give up the 6th most passing yards per game. And I just think that Washington's secondary isn't that good. So I think that Justin Herbert, along with Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, and Keenan Allen, should be able to expose that secondary. So give me the Chargers to win this Week 5 matchup. All right, next up we have the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. And I think New England has shown flashes on both sides of the ball. And this year I think Drake May has had a big year 2 jump. And the offense now scores 25 points per game, which is an 8-point increase from last season. They only scored 17 points and were a bottom 5 offense in the league. And I know it's only through 4 weeks, but if you just watch games, Drake May just looks like a way better quarterback, which is expected going into year 2. And I think eventually he could be an easy top 10, potential top 5 quarterback. But the Bills currently score the 2nd most points per game and have the MVP favorite in Josh Allen right now. So it's very hard to pick against them as they're 4-0. And with how good the run game's been, and it looks like their defense is getting better over time. Although I like New England's offense and I like how they've played so far, I think they're going to be a sneaky team to make the playoffs. I just got to take the Buffalo Bills with the MVP favorite, how well the run game's been going, and they're 4-0. They just look like unstoppable right now. So give me the Bills this Week 5 matchup. All right, in the last game, Monday night game, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think we're finally starting to see the full potential of the Chiefs. They just beat down the Baltimore Ravens, who are a great team, even though they've had a lot of injuries in that game. And their offense was finally able to move the ball since they were able to get their big play receiver and Xavier Worthy back last week. And they just got to wait 2 more weeks until they get Rashee Rice back. And I think that Patrick Mahomes always gets better as the season goes along. And I think the O-line, with more continuity and more games under their belt, I think they should get better too. And going over to Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence really hasn't impressed me. And I just think that Trevor Lawrence, he may not have that it factor in him. And I still think he could be a solid quarterback, but man, he's made some questionable decisions so far. And the offense is struggling to involve their two top playmakers in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. This is my lock of the week, like I said. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this matchup. I think Kansas City's defense is going to give Trevor Lawrence a hard time, and it's going to be hard for them to get it going. So I think Kansas City's offense is going to get better and better over time, but give me the Chiefs to win this matchup. And that wraps up my Week 5 game predictions. Thanks for watching the whole video. And like I said, please make sure you like and subscribe so you have a chance to win the giveaway at the end of the year. And make sure you comment on each video so I could pick my winner. And comment if you have any agreements or disagreements on my predictions. And stay tuned for next week, and I'll see you guys later.